Ooh, it is your October Star Trek update. And, I don't know if I can say this. This is getting recorded in a hotel room. Pretty swank one at that. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But I am not alone, as I had kind of hoped that in October I would be able to have some kind of guest on. But we're not only having some kind of guest, we are being joined by the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. The boss is here.
It's Oktoberfest.
Star Trek Oktoberfest.
As soon as you said October, I just thought Oktoberfest.
Yeah, well, we don't usually partake of that.
No, not in the traditional way. We've made our own tradition of doing a Star Trek podcast.
That's right.
As part of Oktoberfest.
Yeah. So you're actually going to be a part of Patreon throughout most of the week, which is going to be really cool. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So anyway, this is your October update. And wow, I mean, we're only like middle of October right now. I guess this is going to be getting released on October 16th, so not exactly middle of October, but there is a lot to talk about that has already happened. We could have done this podcast last week, and there's already a ton of things really to break into as far as just what's happened in, again, the first couple weeks of October. I guess maybe the first thing, a couple things we're going to talk about. We'll talk about short treks started this month. I think it was the 4th. That the first one, which is called Runaway, that had Ensign Tilly in it from Star Trek Discovery, of course. All 4 short treks that are coming out over this month and then the 3 months following are all Star Trek Discovery. Though I would expect, because Discovery is not actually in the name, that eventually they're going to be about other things. Because CBS executives have made it very clear that they're at no point do they not want Star Trek on CBS All Access. Some kind of Star Trek has to be on pretty much at all times, or at least, like once a week.
Well, I think that's a good policy, but
right.
They're not exactly keeping up their end that right now,
Yeah, right.
There's no Star Trek on right now.
No. We get these Star Treks one a month, or these short treks one a month. And, well, anyway, we'll talk about those more later. But we also did get out of New York Comic-Con. We ended up getting the more official, not a teaser, but a full-on official Season 2 trailer. We did get a teaser before, which I talked about on the Star Trek update. But the teaser the full-on trailer, well, it's about two minutes and change, and there's a lot there. Now, there's also...
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. Now, some of the questions that people may have from it, there were interviews done with some of the cast at New York Comic-Con after the trailer was aired that actually shed a lot of light on what's happening within that trailer. Particularly, there was a great, very long interview with Michelle Yeoh, which is, I think IGN did it with Michelle Yeoh, and it's a really, really important interview. I linked to it in the show notes, but I'll certainly be bringing up a lot of the relevant points as we talk about the trailer. But Stephanie, overall, what did you think about the trailer? Like, what did you think of it?
I thought it looked awesome, and I think it looks like it's going to be even better than Season 1, actually.
Oh, sure. I think by a long shot, this is going to be better than Season 1.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The thing that stood out to me was the storyline, something about Spock and him having a vision of a red angel that Michael shares.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of something that you said about Season 1, which was that you thought it was odd that it was Captain Gabriel Lorca, right? His name's Gabriel.
Yep.
And Michael Burnham is the main character.
Yes.
And that the person who created it was very specific that it had to be a woman named Michael.
Yeah, Brian Fuller said the name has to be Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
you have a woman named Michael, and
right.
then you have... So basically you have Michael and Gabriel.
Which are two archangels.
Which are archangels, yeah.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? I don't know. That's kind of odd, but maybe we'll see in this season.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that... like the main logo and kind of the main poster and even the cover art for the Blu-ray set for Season 1 of Discovery is the Vulcan, live long and prosper symbol, which is actually like half of the hand symbol of a Jewish blessing. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Interesting.
Yeah,
And then
and
the logo for season 2 has the angel and the communicator.
right, but back to season 1, there's also the one eye in the middle of the of the
How could we forget the one eye?
of the live long and prosper thing. I mean, so that's very, very weird. I mean, one could really go some pretty crazy places with a lot of what was trying to be done or said within Star Trek Discovery season 1.
Go take us to one of those places. What do you think?
You can't just say it. Like there's so much history that would have to be covered. But I will say that it's very odd. Like, I agree with you. So just quick, I agree with you on the season 2 trailer that this looks infinitely better than season 1. Even though, not that season 1 was bad, but season 2 looks phenomenal.
You know what? You know why I said that? It
Sure.
looks more Star Trek. There was this complaint that season 1 was not Star Trek.
Right.
It was an interesting sci-fi show, but it wasn't really Star Trek. Season 2 looks a lot more Star Trek to me.
Yeah, so that's and they've made, like, the production team has said as much. Like, we're going to get back to some good old fun time Star Trek, which is great. I love hearing that. But anyway, with season 1, you had, I mean, understand with season 2, you have an entirely new production, almost an entirely new production team. The writers are the same, but the people calling the shots of what the writers need to write are wholly different now. You know, now you have Alex Kurtzman running everything, as to where before you had Aaron Harberts and Gretchen Berg. And, you know, we talked about this in the Star Trek update maybe a month or two ago. And, like, that was apparently an ugly situation where, like, they were threatening violence against the writing team. There were these very, like, it was a very weird situation. And I bring that up to say that Aaron Harberts had a plan of what had to be in season 1 of Discovery, it seems. Brian Fuller had to leave the show, or decided to leave the show, and it sounds like it's because of creative differences. So what the fuck had to get put out there that was so goddamn important to Aaron Harberts that he gets violent in the writing room? I mean, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot, production side and choices in names and symbolism and so on within season 1. Yeah, there's some strangeness that could be that you can kind of put together with that. And
so, what are you saying? Like, it's biblical or Illuminati or something? Like, I just give us a
all
taste.
right. So the best thing I can do is I can give you a, not an analogy. I can give you an example.
Okay.
Of where I think what may have been getting done with Star Trek Discovery season 1 was done with something else.
Okay.
What's the biggest, most popular, most famous, most awarded music video of all time?
Thriller?
Yeah, exactly. Right? And everybody knows that. You say that and instantly people know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
all
true.
right. I mean, like, and nobody debates it. Like, why the fuck would I debate that? I mean, there might be music videos I like better. Like, I don't even think Thriller is Michael Jackson's best song. In fact, it's not even his song. It was written by Rod Templeton.
Yeah.
I think that Thriller was a very intentional, very, like, I think Michael Jackson enjoyed the process of making it and everything, but I think everything around that song and the adjoining video, I think that was an occult ritual done en masse. I mean, it was done with special effects. It wasn't done for real, but I think that Hollywood is loaded with cults. It's a fact. Like, it's just a fucking fact. Okay. And if you want to know how attached are these cults to Star Trek, Ben Stiller, or let's see, it was Ben Stiller invited, what's his name? Black Flag, Henry Rollins. So Ben Stiller invited Henry Rollins to William Shatner's house for a dinner.
Okay. This is going to get weird.
Right. Or maybe it was the other way around. Regardless, Ben Stiller says to Henry Rollins, and Ben Stiller's actually a huge Star Trek fan. In fact, back in the 90s when he did the Ben Stiller show, there's an episode where, like, he totally geeks out over having James Doohan on, who played the original Scotty. But that's a whole other thing. Most people don't even remember that there was a Ben Stiller show. They don't think
I didn't.
Well, I mean, yeah, most people think that Ben Stiller didn't exist until until Zoolander, which is just a piece of shit movie. But anyway, so Ben Stiller's, he's excited to go to William Shatner's place, but he literally says to Henry Rollins, he says, Hank, like, are we going to get initiated into a cult? And he's serious as a heart attack, like Ben Stiller, who's a Jew, and if you're into like all this Illuminati and Jews run the world stuff, I mean, you'd think he'd already be a part of it. He's serious as a heart attack that he thinks going to William Shatner's house. Like, what did he know? Like what did Ben Stiller, like, what was Ben Stiller experiencing? What information was getting to him that made him even think that? Of course, Henry Rollins is like, well, gee, I hope so. Like Henry Rollins thinks it's hilarious. And who the fuck's going to fuck with Henry Rollins? I mean, the guy would end up putting your head through a wall. And actually, Henry Rollins has done music with William Shatner. Like, and so it was Henry Rollins that got invited because Henry Rollins did a great song called I Can't Get Behind That off of I think it was the 2004 William Shatner album Has Been, which is a masterpiece of music. And it really, really fucking is. He produced it with Ben Folds. But anyway, so there's something there, but you don't know this if you're not me. Like I hate to boast like that, but you don't know this shit if you're not me, who for some reason happens to, like Henry Rollins, actually listens to William Shatner's music to know this stuff, and knows a thing or two about Ben Stiller.
And goes to temple with Ben Stiller.
Right, and yeah. Lived in Van Nuys for a while, and and is just like one of the craziest Star Trek fans the world's ever seen. You don't know that if you're not me. And so anyway, and also I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, obviously. I don't mean no disrespect to him with what I brought up, but I think I think there was a cult that put that together, that whole production together. Again, Michael Jackson didn't even write the fucking song. I mean, there's something to be said for performance. Sure, Elvis never wrote his shit, but, no one else could do it but Elvis. Okay.
So who was being initiated into the cult with the Thriller video? Or
I don't know.
It wasn't an initiation, you're saying? It was just an occult ritual?
Yeah, it was just some kind of ritual being put on display for all to see. And I
hiding
think,
in plain sight. They
sure,
like to do that.
Sure. Yeah. And I'll play it straight. I think a lot of award ceremonies do this very same thing. And there's
You're not the only one who says that.
Yeah, and fuck the Illuminati shit in MK Ultra. You don't even have to go there. Bottom line being, there is like way too much, like really blatant Freemasonic symbolism and so on. And so anyway, putting that all together, okay, and if someone wants to accuse me of stacking the deck, go ahead. I don't give a shit. I think that season 1 of Discovery, there was a lot of things at play. There really were. And in fact, when I first saw, and I said this to you, when they first before they revealed the trailer, they revealed the poster for season 2 of Discovery. And now we know it's this Red Angel thing. But when I saw it, I'm like, well, that looks like a phoenix. Now, Phoenix is a huge Freemasonic symbol, okay? And then again, you add in Michael and Gabriel. There's a lot of oddities to this that just even well, I don't know. I don't want to go there, but that's the bottom line. Is that I think season 1 there was some kind of point, and some people talk about even Enterprise had a lot of symbolism in it. That had to do with like the character of T'Pol and so on. I mean, the Vulcans are loaded with symbolism because they borrow from Judaism, they borrow from all kinds of things, and that's always been that way. So some people, if you look into this stuff, some people I think go to really weird places with everything as far as that goes. But yeah, I think something was trying to get said with season 1, and that's part of why I think it feels so disjointed, is because certain things had to be done and said for this to be out there. And I don't know what exactly those are. Well, okay, I have guesses, but that takes way too long to talk about. So so how'd I do? I
think you did pretty good, but I'm curious to hear more about that. But maybe somebody will have to ask you about that.
Yeah, maybe they will. So anyway,
I'm really curious to hear some of the conspiracy theories, but we can maybe at the end of the show come back to it.
We'll see. Well, I do want to get into some interesting actual theology, and I'll use the term theology almost.
Oh,
or philosophy if we want to be fancier, I guess. But that has to do with Star Trek due to recent episodes that we watched that I think will be fun to get into. So okay. Let's talk more about this trailer for season 2.
So sorry, I interrupted
you.
Oh,
no, that's all right. It looks better than season 1, bottom line. I still feel like it has a lot of that Star Trek the motion picture feel to it. Even this concept of the Red Angel that they bring up within the trailer. Link is in the show notes, folks. If you want to watch it quick and pause this, it's fine. And we do get to see Spock. We get to see Captain Pike being played by Anson Mount, who he looks. It doesn't. He looks good, but it doesn't feel like. It doesn't feel like Jeff Hunter from The Cage, which I don't think you've seen that. Nope. So you wouldn't exactly know, that
I haven't
that
been
score.
too into the original series, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Hunter's role as Captain Pike, like his acting job as Captain Pike, was so powerful, in my opinion. You really love the character and feel like there's a lot of history to the character without ever hearing of any of it, or really experiencing any of it. And there was only ever a few books that even touched on Captain Pike, even though I would read those anytime I'd see them. But we get Captain Pike, who, of course, is famously the captain of the Enterprise before Captain Kirk is. Of course, season 1 ended with us seeing the Enterprise. And it, pretty much we're going to get Captain Pike as the captain of the Discovery. It seems like for at least some chunk of the season. And hey, great. We do get Spock. What did you think of Spock? So you got Ethan Peck playing Spock. You get to hear his voice this time around, what he sounds like talking as Spock. You get a look at him as Spock, and you even see him with a beard, which that
threw me off. That was the weirdest.
Well, tell
thing.
me what you think about Spock, then we'll break it.
I thought he looked like one of the Beatles with the beard.
And he has the hair. Yeah, he kind of has the 60s
he looks
hair.
like a Beatle.
You're right. I'm not going to argue that. He kind of looks like a beetle.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
You're asking for my impressions.
Yeah.
I'm giving them to you.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it. I mean, and you only see him at the very end. You start hearing him talk, and you see him at the very end. But he's talked about throughout the trailer. So, I mean, what other thoughts do you have about this guy? How are you feeling about Ethan Peck? What do you think about the voice?
It's too early to tell.
Sure.
I didn't really notice much about the voice. It was kind of forgettable.
Oh, okay.
Do you have thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, like I wanted to take my panties off and toss them at the screen. I mean, I was like, so a couple things.
You think he's great?
I think he looks great. I think he is. Even though I agree, the way they showed him with the beard, I think there's some importance to that. I think the way they showed him was not him at his sexiest. But
sure.
I've seen some shots of Ethan Peck where I'm like, oh, he's sexy. And Spock has to be sexy. You have to have Leonard Nimoy was sexy as hell back in the day. You've got to have that. And his voice, I think, sounds tremendous. It's really, it's almost sultry, which a lot of people don't realize that Spock had, especially when you listen to it in mono. Leonard Nimoy had a very deep kind of voice that just kind of captured you. And I think Ethan Peck has that. I do think the beard. Now, here's a funny thing. Here's a very, very weird thing. Now, I mentioned that interview with Michelle Yeoh. Now, the only reason I read that interview with Michelle Yeoh is because it said Section 31 is perfect, and I love Section 31, so I wanted to read this. Yes, I'm not inferring that somehow I regularly do a internet search for Section 31, but I might. So, anyway. So
talk about a secret society within Starfleet.
Oh, fuck yeah. Well, this could get interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I want to bring this up. So when I first see Spock with the beard, anytime somebody thinks Spock's beard, well, they either think of a band, because there's a band called Spock's Beard, but what is the band named after? It's named after the episode from the original series, Mirror, Mirror, which has Spock with a goatee, much like I'm sporting right now.
Right. So that is to show that since the real Spock would never have facial hair of any kind, it couldn't be actually him, even though it looks like him.
Well, here's the weird thing. When I saw it, the first time I saw it, I instantly thought, I'm like, wait, he's got a beard? Is that the real Spock? Or not?
Yeah.
Or is that the mirror Spock? And add in this interview with Michelle Yeoh. She talks about, here, actually, maybe I can pull it up quickly and read the relevant point. Yeah, she says, we don't, or let's say, I'm reading from it. A Tale of Two Georgios is from IGN. Even though the OG is an original universe, I guess, Georgiou, Captain Georgiou is long dead, the actress, that being Michelle Yeoh, said that we should still expect to see a version of the character in addition to the mirror one from a certain point of view. Here's Michelle Yeoh talking. We don't want anybody else apart from the selected few who already do know about the mirror universe to know, okay? That has to be kept under wraps, or otherwise it would just be chaos in the Prime universe. So, here she's going to list off the people that know about the mirror universe. So, Admiral Cornwell, which we know Admiral Cornwell. Spock. Sarek, Tilly, Saru. That's who she lists off. Those that know about the mirror universe. Spock is one of the people that knows about the mirror universe. So, what the hell? And now she makes also clear that Captain Pike doesn't know. He has no clue about the mirror universe.
Okay.
And so
that's going to be interesting.
It is, because the trailer would make you seem to think that Pike knows that he's dealing with Empress Georgiou, because we get Michelle Yeoh returning as Mirror Georgiou in the trailer.
She's shown talking to Captain Pike.
Right. And so the idea
presumably knows that she died, in the regular universe.
Yeah, so they must concoct, this interview gives you hints as to what's going on in that trailer, because they must concoct some story as to how what everyone else thinks is just Captain Georgiou, how she's back from the dead.
Right.
When it's actually Empress Georgiou.
Right.
And
maybe Michael gets reinstated because her captain didn't actually die or something.
Yeah, maybe that's a way to kind of explain some of that off. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. And actually, Michelle Yeoh even says that she gets pretty flirtatious with Captain Pike in this, which I think would be hot as hell. That'd be great. So more with the trailer. But anyway, those are important things to bring up. But the reason I mentioned that list was, wait, how does Spock know about the mirror universe? What the fuck? Like, what's his deal? So I think she let a cat out of the bag. And that...
Well, maybe he knows because he's connected to Michael.
Maybe.
Being her half-sister.
Yeah, maybe.
Her half-brother.
Right, her half-brother, yeah.
She's his half-sister.
Right. I mean, it's or adopted or whatever. Anyway, it's entirely... I mean, that's possible, but maybe Spock goes for a ride to the mirror universe. And he...
That's where he sees the Red Angel.
Yeah, and maybe he grows a beard while he's there for the trouble. I mean, like, I'm open to that. That's pure speculation, and you always want to speculate responsibly. Okay, but I think that's kind of odd that you have these two. Before, it would have just me been thinking, okay, why does he have a beard? That must be like, well, I wonder if that's Mirror Spock. Now you're getting from Michelle Yeoh, well, Spock knows about the mirror universe. Wait, when did that happen? Or why did that even happen?
So it's interesting because in the mirror universe, everybody seems to be a rebellious bad guy. They're like,
sure,
it's like their shadow of the character.
The alter ego.
Yeah, the alter ego. So like Vulcans, how would they be in the mirror universe? Would they because Vulcans are always like the logical, stoic good guy. Law and order. Very logical, but in the mirror universe, would they be malicious and evil, or would they be more like Romulans and more emotional? Well,
keep in mind that they were, in Enterprise and the Mirror Darkly, they were slaves. Like it's abundantly clear that Vulcans were slaves to the Terran Empire at that point. But they were kind of allowed to serve on the ships. And Sarek is ironically like one of those cases where the alter ego, or where the mirror version is not an alter ego. Sarek seems to be the same in both the Prime and in the mirror, even though I think he's dead now in the mirror universe. But he seemed to be pretty much the same person. But yeah, obviously Vulcans at the time of the original series, which is closer to Discovery, it's not like they're all good people, because Spock has no problem serving under a very vicious and evil Captain Kirk on the Mirror Enterprise, and so on. So certainly there is precedent that, logically, and in fact, Spock has even said that in the original series in the episode The Apple, where he's saying, people have the right to live in a system that works for them. And that kind of logic would say, well, if the Terran Empire works for you, okay, we can do this. And so it does appear that Vulcans are a little more comfortable with tyranny and maybe even like logically stand, like, in fact,
they rationalize it.
In fact, Spock even argues with Kirk at the end of the original Mirror episode in the original series, where he says that, look, you can't defeat this. And Kirk argues with him and says, oh yeah, no, all it takes is one man with a vision, and anyway. So, yeah, but that's a great point to bring up, is that we could see, well, I wonder what's going to happen with the Spock. But bottom line, the producers have also made it very clear that this Spock will not break canon. Like it totally fits within the canon. I think making it the Mirror Universe Spock would make all the sense in the world, and would actually make a lot more sense out of the original Mirror episode. So anyway, other comments on it. I mean, the effects all look great. I mean, everything just looks slick, for this new season with the season 2 trailer.
You pick up some idea of the plot lines, right? Like you see kind of Empress Georgiou being like controlling Section 31 or having a major role with Section 31.
Yeah, she's definitely with Section 31, and that interview with Michelle Yeoh like really drives that home. And like there was that deleted scene where you see her get invited, and everybody was wondering, is this actually canon? And now it pretty much is, because the character of Leland that you get introduced to in that, Michelle Yeoh talks about Leland in her interview, and so he's there. Section 31 is going to be, I mean, you see the Section 31 badge. We finally were going to get an answer to those black badges, which I think is just one of the coolest ideas that anyone involved with Star Trek had ever come up with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that, we're going to get some Section 31. That's going to be hot. That's going to be cool.
Definitely. You also see Klingons, so we're going to find out what's going on with the Klingons. And is the Empire fractured, or are they going to be reunified?
Right.
Now that Voq is dead for good, and Voq is gone.
Yeah, I mean, like, Tyler's still around. Ash Tyler's still around.
Yeah, but he had Voq removed from him.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So what more do you have on the trailer?
Also, you see some kind of like Michael's on an away mission or in trouble and sees the vision of the Red Angel.
Right.
And it somehow is shared by Spock, who has seen the Red Angel too. So what is the Red Angel? We don't know.
Yeah, this is going to be, I mean, good job on setting up a mystery, on the production team for setting up a really big mystery. Like, what the hell's this Red Angel thing? And I think some people might be thinking, well, that's Star Trek getting a little weird and religious, isn't it? And but with the Star Trek the Motion Picture, like, Spock was detecting V'ger and was feeling a presence from light years away. There's nothing weird about that at all. I think this completely fits in with what we know of Vulcans anyway, in Star Trek. So I'm curious to see what this whole Red Angel thing is. Though I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, do you have any predictions or?
Maybe it's like a ship or something, or like an android, or like, I don't know.
Oh, an android. Yeah. That's possible. Yeah, I could see it being some kind of like weird Section 31 hallucination thing. I don't know, but
MK Ultra.
Oh wow.
Section 31 needs to have their own version of MK Ultra.
Actually, that'd be a tremendous storyline. Like that. I mean, that would be really, really something for them to dig into. So yeah, I love this. I like everything that I see. Rebecca Romaine Stamos looks great as, or Rebecca Romaine. She's not Stamos anymore. She looks great as number one. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the Enterprise in this season. Anything you're wanting to see in season 2 of Discovery? Anything particular?
I'm wanting to see a little more scientific, possibility,
a little more exploration, huh?
Things that are scientifically possible. So, like, I was annoyed by the whole plot line in season 1 of the mushrooms and the mycelia, not the mushrooms, but like the fungi and the mycelia,
the big water bear, the tardigrade.
Yeah, the tardigrade, and like it all just felt a little too magical, and they had to grow it in this magical forest, and like that kind of thing. That annoyed me. There was gayness in season 1 too, but it was totally focused on gay men. And I think that reflects the part of the writers, which was Aaron, what's his face?
Aaron Harberts.
Yeah. And so if it's going to be, like, I would like to see some more diversity as far as the LGBT umbrella. I mean,
you did get a scene with Georgiou having a threesome. Like Empress Georgiou having a threesome in season 1.
Yeah, I guess that's true, I guess.
I could see her pulling some lesbianism. Michelle Yeoh has no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay,
she's a goddess.
I hope we see that. I hope that comes true.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Or even if we find out that Tilly or number 1, played by Rebecca Romaine, maybe they've got something,
Maybe.
and that could be interesting. But yeah, I'm with you on that.
I want to see some more Klingon sex too.
Yeah, I want to see the 2 dicks.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
want to see the sex scene with Laurel in last season was awesome.
it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then, again, when they, in close to the finale, or maybe it was the finale, when they go to Konos and you see a Klingon peeing, there's two streams. I mean,
yeah.
they have a double dick,
Right.
or they have two holes, or whatever the fuck. So
Something's going on.
Yeah, I want to find out more about that.
Klingons have a lot of redundant organs.
Yeah, exactly.
But maybe it's not so redundant.
Sure. So
anyway, yeah, I wanted to see things that are more scientifically feasible and a little bit less magical, because that's Star Wars, that's not Star Trek.
Sure.
And I want to see more LGBT kind of diversity. I want to see more like characters that are like kind of gender queer or gender neutral, or like maybe can change genders or expression or something like that.
They have characters where they could make that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should.
They really could. And yeah, I'd like to see more of that explored as well, because now's the time. And there have been scripts for Star Trek shows in the past that have been all about that, and they were, wildly ignored. Or told to like keep that on the shelf, get that out of here. And, it'd be nice if Discovery did that, because you got a great name.
Yeah.
Discovery, all right, well, let's start discovering all kinds of things inside
that's why
and
you
out.
said that, yeah.
I
get it.
Yeah. So anyway, so now do you want to move on to our next bit?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So there is the Michelle Yeoh interview. I don't think I necessarily need to really read anything from that. I kind of brought up the high notes in what we were talking about the trailer, but I think it's very important to read it for yourself. Hit the link in the show notes because it is really enlightening as far as a lot of what you're seeing within the trailer, and I think of a lot of what's to come for season 2. And I am so excited that we're going to get more of this character. I think I said it when you and I did a season 1 review that I want more of this character. I need more of this character. And as soon as we found out that she was still alive and joining Section 31, I got a little hot under the collar, and I was just like, all right, yeah, this is going to be great.
Yeah, I remember seeing somebody that I'm Facebook friends with who is Asian complaining, or she's Taiwanese actually. I'm sorry, I should say like she's Asian, but she's Taiwanese, and she was like really happy that Michelle Yeoh was on there as like a captain.
Yeah.
But then she was mad that she got killed off in like the first episode. And she was kind of calling out Star Trek Discovery for, having an Asian woman as a captain, but then killing her off immediately. So maybe that'll be remedied.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Star Trek's been pretty good. Like, you had the character of Deborah Sulu, who was a huge deal. But I understand. I mean, regardless, it's, impact over intent, I guess, in that. And yeah, I'm glad that, really glad that she's back. Especially since Michelle Yeoh right now, because of that movie, Crazy Rich Asians or whatever. She's back in the limelight. I mean, she's a big deal again, and rightfully so. Like I said, she's tremendous. I mean, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You go down the fucking list of movies she's done. They're just amazing. So anyway, yeah, so let's, while we're talking Discovery, let's get into our very first Short Treks review. Again, we're going to be getting one of these every month, going all the way into January. There's no announcements or plans, as far as I know, for there to be any Short Treks after January, but we are going to get them all the way up until the release of season 2, or the first episode of season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, which, by the way, we now have an official date for that, which is January 17th. We knew it would be January, but now we know the date because of the trailer. So anyway, the first Short Trek aired on October 4th. I believe it was a Thursday, and you really had to wait until like 9 p.m. That was kind of weird that they had you wait that long, and why do it that late at night? Unless they really, well, I don't know what kids do today. Like 8 p.m. used to be, bedtime for me growing up as a kid. And like if Star Trek was on at 9, well, right. And if Star Trek was on at 9,
too night,
be like, hey,
too late, because then you're staying up till 10.
Right. So anyway, I mean, that's interesting, but whatever. So this episode was called Runaway, and it was pretty much entirely about Ensign Tilly. So because she's ensign and not cadet, it pretty much tells you where this takes place. It's a good bet this episode takes place somewhere in between the last scene of the season finale for season 1 and the award ceremony where she becomes ensign. So somewhere in between there it kind of happens, which I don't think most people considered that there'd be a lot of time in between that, but I guess there is. So this has to do with Tilly. Basically, she's like eating in, she's in the whatever
Cafeteria.
the cafeteria, the DFAC, whatever they want to call it aboard a starship.
Well, she has a conversation with her mom before that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, she's talking to her mom. You find out she has a very successful sister of some kind that we've yet to meet. But her mother is really hard on her, telling her what to do, and Tilly completely ignores her, which bravo, you know. I mean, Tilly's really like a fan favorite character already, and part of that comes from that Mary Wiseman, the actress. She's phenomenal. I mean, she's just dynamite, and she's funny and genuine, and you just love seeing her on the screen. I mean, she's so cool. Let me ask that quick. What do you think of the character of Tilly? I mean, how do you feel about that?
I like her. Definitely the humor is awesome to have. But
Yeah.
she's also like a really good character because you see her like gaining confidence and learning how to stand up for herself.
Right.
And that's a really good example to follow for little girls or for me.
Yeah, sure, right. Hell yes, yeah. Yeah, no, I think Tilly's great. I mean, easily in the top 3 characters of this show, I think. So to start off with a short track featuring her, that's a win because a lot of people really like Tilly. In fact, I mean, I know a lot of people think she's downright hot. Like, I mean, they'll come right out and say that. You know, bravo. So, so this has to do with her. Yeah, she's talking to her mother, getting this big speech. Then she's alone in the rec deck or whatever they call it aboard Discovery, and she then like weird things start happening within the cafeteria.
Yeah, she notices the replicators going haywire and
Right.
spitting out things. The lights are flickering. Things are being knocked over, and she sees little distortions in the fabric of like the air or whatever, or the scenery.
Yeah, it's
and
almost
it
like a
looks
scene from
some-
Predator.
Yeah, exactly. It looks
Right.
like something is there, but it's cloaked and invisible.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we end up finding out through various hijinks that it's actually seems like a teenage girl, but a very young woman who is a Zahian, which is a new species we've never met before, who seem to have this ability to, well, first off, well, I won't say that yet. Spoiler alerts, folks. But anyway, she's a Zahian who, they can disappear. They seem to have some kind of ability to manipulate technology through their own biology, which is interesting. But it's nice to have another species. And she has a lot of piercings and everything, obviously designed to appeal to, people that alternative people and people of subcultures and whatever. How about I put it that way? And
Well, I thought it was also designed to appeal to teenagers because
well, yeah.
because Tilly's like once she realizes that it's a teenage girl, she treats her extremely compassionately, like a really good friend
Almost a
or
sisterhood.
like a cool aunt or something like that. Like she's looking out for her safety and she's looking out for her best interests, and she's curious with her. She's asking her questions. Why are you here? Where did you come from? Like, what's going on with you? Why are you running away? Do you want to go back? And then she's basically helping her get to safety.
Yeah, I just didn't want to suggest that nose rings are only for teenagers, and things like that.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but yeah, so that character's name, it's Mahani Ikihali Po. But she just ends up being called Poe.
Yeah.
And played by Yadira Guevara Preep, and it's I thought it was cool. Like this episode, and so you pretty much there's this bonding that goes on between the two. And Poe doesn't want to go back to her planet, to the Zahians, and you find out she created some incredible device, and there's just this really beautiful exchange of understanding between Tilly and Poe that you get, which probably lends to the idea that the character of Poe is going to come back later and has some kind of importance. In fact, you find out that this character is royalty. Poe is actually a princess, and in fact her entire family has died. She's pretty much the ruler of the Zahian people. And she just wasn't ready to take all that on, and that's kind of what lends to her running away. It's a very sweet 15 minutes, and that's all it is about 15 minutes. I thought it was really sweet, and I want to get your take on it, Stephanie, but I thought what was really great about it was that so much shit happens in season 1 of Discovery, you barely got a chance to breathe with the characters.
Yeah.
And really delve into them. And to find out more about Tilly, boy, I just thought that was a win. I was like, we need that. And if short treks are going to be all about that, I think that's dynamite to be able to have that opportunity. Doesn't mean they should ignore it in the episodes proper. But in short treks, let's have that. If this is what we're in for with short treks, Awesome. I'm excited for the rest of this of what they have planned so far for the first 4 episodes. But what did you think about Runaway, the first of the short treks?
I loved it. I was really touched by the compassionate relationship between Tilly and Poe, and I thought it was really like a useful reminder, because a lot of people get frustrated with teenagers, and they like adults, they don't listen to them. They think they ascribe like negative, malicious motivations to them, like, oh, you're just doing this to piss me off, or you're just a rebel without a cause, or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, actually, no, they have very good reasons for what they're doing, and maybe you need to give a little bit more compassion to your own teenage self, you know, and that's why you're so mean to like actual teenagers. You know?
Yeah, you're hitting on something really interesting there, because like I think a lot of people would think it's dumb that there's a monarchy. I mean, there have been other monarchies in Star Trek. It's not that odd. But I think some people, when they hear that there's monarchies in space with Star Trek, it's just like, what? Come on. Like, aren't we past that? But it's a nice shorthand of saying, no, this teenager has responsibilities, just like real teenagers have responsibilities
and feels very
to themselves.
Overwhelmed by them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That the world does put shit on you as a young person, as to where a lot of parents and adults in general think, oh, kids got it so fucking easy. The fuck they do.
No, they don't.
Yeah, and so you raise a great point. I think that kind of highlights that, and I think younger people, when they watch this, they're going to hit that. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, I can relate to that,
Yeah, I think it'll be really helpful to see that, because, like, yeah, I mean, I personally wish I would have seen more programming like that as a teenager.
Yeah,
knowing, like, those shows would make you feel good when, like, when a show would attempt to portray what it's like, saying, like, hey, I understand what it's like to be a kid. It's not always easy. It's hard. Sometimes. And, I would find a lot of comfort in those messages. So yeah, I'm glad that's out there. And also just like the sisterhood kind of between women. It was like,
that's nice.
I don't know if like a male, like if the genders were male, or if one of them was a male, I don't know if it would have been exactly the same.
Not at those ages.
Dynamic,
If it was like a couple of 10-year-olds, it might be, but yeah, generally you don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, not that it shouldn't be like,
of course
like
it should,
that,
right?
But yeah, I thought it was like, I don't know, it was kind of like an unspoken thing, like, oh yeah, we're women, like an older woman will look out for like a teenage girl, or like a younger woman, because she knows what it's like. She's been there, and she knows that sometimes you can use like a friend or a helping hand. Yeah, he knows exactly what she needs. So, yeah, I liked it. The only thing I found frustrating about this was that, damn it, it was just a tease. It was too short.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Even like the 15-minute show was just packed with stuff going on, and it was like not long enough to actually really flesh out the story or the plot or get like much characterization on Poe. You know, it was just like, it did give additional characterization on Tilly, but like, give me even more than that. You know, I want more. It could have easily been an hour to an hour and a half, and it would have been more satisfying that way.
Yeah, no, I concur. It could have been a full episode. But at the same time, like, I think if there's less expectations because it's not like part of the season proper, it lets them experiment like this. So yeah, I'm with you. And I do also get why, like, maybe they did it this way. But yeah, it could have been, I mean, go 30 minutes at least. I think that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, 15 minutes is like, it's not. So when I was a teenager, I worked in a research laboratory with a guy from Japan who was my, like, the person I was shadowing.
Yeah.
And he told me this proverb, Japanese proverb. It's too long for a belt and too short for a sash. It means that it's just an awkward length that you can't really do anything with. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if you have to wait like 12 minutes for something to incubate or something, it's like, well, you can't really exactly go take a lunch break, but it's also like, it's kind of too long to just stand there and wait either. So what the fuck do you do with yourself? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I felt like the 15 minutes was one of those awkward lengths where it was like, it was not a trailer that you could just watch, you know, like the trailer that we watched, the 2-minute one, but it was also definitely not a full episode. To qualify as a full episode, it had to be at least like 20 to 30 minutes, and it was short of that.
Yeah.
So I found the length quite annoying, unsatisfying, but
sure.
I mean, overall, I liked the story. It
Yeah,
was a feel-good story.
yeah, I want to. Well, I mean, this is new ground for Star Trek, so maybe they'll expand. Maybe they'll be like, no, we need to do 30 minutes or something like that, and I think that would be fine. But I'm looking for the next one is Calypso, which has to do with the new character. We won't be visiting a Star Trek Discovery character again, even though we will in other short treks. And that one's going to be airing at the beginning of November. So looking forward to that. And of course, we'll do a review for that one.
There's
in
going
the
to be a
November
short
Star
trek
Trek update.
about Saru, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
okay, I'm really looking forward to that one because I want
Yeah.
to know more about Saru.
Yeah, there's one about Saru, and I don't recall what the other one was about. But
Yeah.
regardless, yeah. So we've got those lined up. Any other comments on Runaway?
No,
No? Okay.
let's go on.
Yeah, so here I'll get into the news that, well, I mean, you never got into comic books, did you, Stephanie?
No,
Yeah.
that was never a thing for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love comic books, and certainly when my favorite franchises would get into the comic book game, I'd be excited as hell. I've been reading Star Trek comics for a very long time. Just like some news, this is kind of news within the Star Trek update of what's coming up. We are going to get, in January, IDW has announced a lot of what they're going to be releasing, including, so it's going to be the 20th anniversary in 2019 for the company, IDW Publishing. And so they're doing this whole thing called IDW 2020, where whatever the comic's about, it's going to be either 20 years in the future or 20 years in the past. Now, IDW does a ton of comics. They don't just do Star Trek comics, but they've been doing a very good run with Star Trek comics in general. And they're going to do a story that takes place 20 years before The Next Generation with a very young Picard. And obviously this also includes a very young Jack Crusher, who is still alive, which is Wesley's dad, and of course the husband of a very young Dr. Beverly Crusher. So that's going to be fun to see a young Picard story, and fits in nicely with the Picard series we're going to end up getting on CBS All Access pretty soon, which, by the way, the first picture of production for that series, for the Picard series coming up, was released by Patrick Stewart himself on Instagram. And I mean, it's just him sitting in a writer's room, but that's pretty goddamn
That's
exciting in itself.
definitely.
Yeah. So you got that. Also, it looks like, I thought the Star Trek versus Transformers comic book crossover from IDW was just going to run to like issue 4 and end out the year, but it looks like we're going to get an issue 5. That's going to be happening. Issue 1's been out so far. I read it. I loved it already. I thought it was so cool. They're using the style of Star Trek the Animated Series, which have I watched that with you?
I
I don't think we've watched that because
think maybe we tried one or something.
we watched the original
Yeah.
series and you weren't digging it so much.
yeah.
But yeah, the animated series I love. I think it's a lot of fun. In fact, there's a character in it called Emrys, who you get a lot of her in the first issue of Star Trek versus Transformers. And the animation styles just match because they're from a relatively similar time period in American animation, for it to make sense. So I loved the first issue. I can't wait to read more. There's also going to be a huge, it's like $60. There's going to be a huge 600-page hardcover coming out called Star Trek The Next Generation, The Missions Continue, which it has, let's see, I do have a listing of the stories that'll be included with it. I know Hive is in it.
Now that's a comic book I would read.
Well,
Or is it a graphic novel? Or?
I mean, it's technically you'd call it a graphic novel, but it'll have the space between Intelligence Gathering, Last Generation, Ghosts, and Hive. Now, Hive is a unique deal because Hive is the story of written by Brandon Braga, and it's supposed to be the end of the Borg. And the claim was when Hive came out, and this was probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. When Hive came out, the claim from IDW is that this is canon. Like, this comic book happened. It's where a lot of the comic books, the Discovery comic books are canon, but other comic books outside of that have never really been considered canon. This one, Braga said, is canon. And, you get 7 of 9 and all that, which, of course, Brandon Braga was married to Jerry Ryan. But I don't know about the status of the other stories within this collection. But Hive is certainly an interesting one to read. The thing is Hive was kind of a disappointing comic. So if it's canon, That kind of sucks. I don't know how I feel about that. Those kind of arguments have come and gone.
To go out like that?
Yeah, like Jerry Taylor, who was like at one time was as important as Rick Berman and Brandon Braga and all that, and she really started spearheading with Voyager because she loved that there was a female captain, and of course she would. Jerry Taylor wrote a book called, I think it was called Pathways, which was supposed to be like the kind of an origin story for Captain Janeway, and she actually left Star Trek or was fired, depending who you ask, because she wanted that novel to be canon. And it's kind of asshole-ish if, Brandon Braga, and look, I used to be friends with Brandon. Like, I mean, I like the guy, but
yeah, right.
If he gets to call that shot that this is like the end of the Borg and this is canon, but you fire fucking Jerry Taylor because she wants a book to be canon, I mean, that's a dick move.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Notice the genders there.
Just that. So, the last thing to announce is that I think starting in January as well, there's going to be an amazing 6-issue run called the Q Conflict, which of course has to do with Q, and we're going to get all, I guess we're going to get 4 major crews of Star Trek. It looks like the Enterprise crew is going to be left out of that, but you're going to get DS9, the original series, Voyager, and Next Generation, which maybe Enterprise will show up at the end. That's a bit of a fucking snub. Like,
right?
Where the hell's Enterprise?
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, Enterprise is the show that never had a Q in it that I can remember. That's interesting that they never did. Why didn't they ever do that? What the fuck was wrong with them? That would have been dynamite if they had John Delancey on the show.
Yeah. Maybe it was too far in the past.
Yeah, I don't know why I never thought about that.
Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, well, anyway, that still looks like a really cool comic series to come up. So, all right. Why don't we
have to read these comics now? I'm interested.
Well, I have them if you want them.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
Like, I actually have all the ones that they mentioned that are going to be in that hardcover already, too. So,
yes, I want to read those.
All right, my love. We'll get you reading those. So, now, why don't we get into... I want to talk about something. So, you and I, Stephanie, we had actually been recently... on a lark, if we can't think of something, or if we're in between series or something,
or if we run out of trashy reality TV shows.
If you run out of trashy reality TV shows, which we got to get to watching here in a minute, but if we have time and or say we're going to go do something that night, and we only have 40 or 50 minutes, whatever, to do dinner. We've been putting on some Star Trek lately, just pop in an episode, random ones, not watching it in any order. Voyager, I think it's interesting that we've chosen Voyager, and we both kind of agreed with it independently. Because, this is the thing I feel about Voyager. Like, if you're already a hardcore, and I mean a fucking hardcore Star Trek fan, which you and I are, if you want a Star Trek fix, you go to Voyager, because, and I've always said this about Voyager, the reason I love Voyager is that it's Star Trek for Star Trek's sake. So if you're already a fan, you want Star Trek that has to do with the universe that you love, not necessarily Star Trek that means something to you today. And I think Voyager is that prescription. I think Voyager is that, and that's why it always feels so good to just jump in on it. Because, again, if you already know Star Trek, if you're already super familiar and you love it and you love that universe, it's Star Trek for Star Trek's sake. And I don't see it as a negative. I know where people would see it as a negative, but I don't. So we've been concentrating on a lot of the Borg episodes, particularly because I think also, this is interesting, because I made a comment the other day saying, I really wish there were Star Trek Voyager movies, feature films. But you and I both came to the conclusion, we're like, yeah, but they really did. A lot of these episodes were pretty much TV movies, but they were movies done so well and on such a grand scale that they could have been in theaters and they would have been phenomenal.
Right.
Dark Frontier, Unimatrix Zero, Endgame, you go down the list of them, right?
Yeah.
And you felt the same way. These are pretty much feature films.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, or even Year of Hell. Year of Hell is awesome. We rewatched that. That was that was gold.
Yeah, they're all as good as movies. I mean, the production was really good.
Yeah, especially at the time. Now, there's an episode, it's from season 4, episode 21. This is one of my favorite episodes of Voyager, called The Omega Directive. Now, we rewatched this.
Yes, we did.
There's, upon rewatching, the Omega, which the whole story is about finding this Omega molecule, which, if you listen to the September Star Trek update, I tell you all about that, so I don't want to rehash it here. Okay, but bottom line, this is the most powerful molecule in the universe. The Borg want it, The Federation is interested in it. Everybody's interested in it once they figure out what the hell it is. And to the Borg, it's like the symbol of perfection. Mm-hmm. And they're all about, we know that ever since First Contact, the Borg are all about looking for perfection. And, this is Seven of Nine gets to really highlight in this, where she really, this episode is also very Star Trek the Motion Picture, where, the question was Spock putting his quest for V'ger and the perfection of V'ger over the needs of the crew of the Enterprise. This is a situation where Seven seems to be putting her needs for the search for perfection with the Omega molecule over the needs and the safety of the crew of Voyager. It's a very interesting episode, but I thought I want to talk about it a little bit, because I thought that there were some very weird lines within it, very weird quotes that you get. Like where Seven of Nine says, Janeway is talking to Seven of Nine about the Omega molecule and says, the theory is that this is what caused the Big Bang. And Seven of Nine just comes out of nowhere and says, oh, creation myth, just like any other.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, that's really ballsy for Star Trek to say.
Totally. Even though you could make the argument that, yeah, the Big Bang is a creation myth.
Oh, the thing is, I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm an atheist, but I agree that it's a creation myth. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the Big Bang is how the universe started. Mm. But then also you get where she's talking about how they assimilated primitive species. Seven of Nine is. And she said they all had these stories in their religious canon that kept talking about something that seemed to be the same thing. And eventually they find out that it's the Omega molecule. But the Borg are paying attention to these. I mean, it's almost like ancient astronaut stuff.
I was just going to say that.
Right?
It's almost like Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Yeah.
He's saying, they weren't talking about gods. They're talking about technology.
Right. They're talking about the Omega molecule or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, for Seven of Nine to be hitting at all this, and there really seemed to be, this episode smacked of a search for God, and that's why I said, this is kind of the theology of Star Trek. I think this might be one of the most important episodes of Star Trek across the board, because you get such wild thoughts in it, such wild quotes, and things you just never, ever, ever hear in any other part of Star Trek. Pick your series, pick your timeline. It doesn't matter. You never hear anything else like it. It is a very unique episode. And it really came to fore for me after I heard that theory about that, trying to explain the Borg's relationship with why they keep attacking Earth is because of the Omega molecule.
Yeah.
That's what made me want to watch it again. And yeah, there's just, this is I think this episode is downright central to Star Trek as a whole. What do you think of the episode overall, Stephanie? I mean, you don't have to get into the theology if you don't want to, but go ahead.
Well, I just did want to make a comment about the theology. I think in Voyager in general, this was an episode in the late seasons of Voyager.
Season 4, but yeah, that's second half.
The established seasons of Voyager, after the first few. And I really think Voyager was the show that there was just a lot of creative license with it, because it's you're out in the Delta Quadrant, you're cut off from communication.
Right.
Who knows what wacky shit you're going to see there. I think that was a very experimental show, and that was one reason why people liked it so much. And I mean, hell, they experimented with having a female captain, that was
sure.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, the Omega directive, because, it was almost like Icarus flying too close to the sun. They were trying to attain perfection, get this molecule and harness its power, but it didn't want to be harnessed, and it was just destroying every time someone tried to harness it. Basically, the molecule would somehow explode or cause a big combustion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, again, this was such a crazy idea, and they just ran with it. And you find out that, the Omega molecule, Starfleet's known about it for 100 years, and they'd been fucking with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the Starfleet's directive was actually to destroy it if anyone was experimenting with it.
Right, and only the captains would ever know about it.
Right, whereas the Borg, so clearly they were scared of it, and they thought it would need to be controlled.
Right.
The Borg wanted to control it too, but they wanted to use it for their own purposes. They wanted to harness its power, and they believed that they could. So yeah, two different approaches to controlling something that can't be controlled, understanding something that can't be understood, you know, something that's scary and powerful.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting though that like the quest seemed. Well, I think there's a lot. There's a lot to take away from this philosophically because you have the Borg that want to harness it, but then Starfleet says destroy it every time that you see it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a weird message. Like if the Borg sees it as perfection, and yet Starfleet says it needs to be destroyed at every turn, I'm still chewing on what that's trying to say. Like,
Just that this is very dangerous and powerful and special.
Yeah, but I think there's something more to it. It almost reminds me of a kind of a quasi-Buddhist concept of that perfection lies within imperfection. And that like the quest for perfection is, it's in fact Janeway calls the Omega molecule, calls it the Borg's Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And that the search for it, like the quest for the Holy Grail, kind of like in Excalibur, the quest for the Holy Grail is what actually brings down the kingdom itself. And, you know, like that quest for perfection is what causes all chaos. And that's a very, I think there's something very deep that was being said with this episode because it is very much a quest for God. Like on both ends, and for the like, it does completely change the way that you experience the Borg. You know, they're not just the Borg Queen anymore, and you thought that changed things, right? It's I don't know. There's something there. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to say, but this is just a wild fucking episode, and I could see how an entire theory that expands upon the entire Star Trek canon, you know, would really come out of it. But I want to ask you, Stephanie, before we wrap up here. What's of the recent episodes that we've rewatched? What's been your favorite? Because we've been watching the biggies: Year of Hell, Dark Frontier, Unimatrix Zero, Endgame. What do you think?
I honestly think Endgame is my favorite.
The finale?
Yeah, the finale.
Yeah, that is pretty badass.
I love it. Anytime, you know, I've been thinking of a lot of this stuff in Star Trek from a psychological perspective lately, just because I've been getting into some sort of like personal development and growth kind of activities.
Sure.
And like, I love it when there's a situation where a character can talk to their past or future self. Or like a part of themselves or something like that. Or
oh, you're right. Yeah, because you have future Janeway.
Yeah.
And
I always wonder what it would be like. So the plot of the Endgame, which is the finale, is that Voyager does end up getting home, but it takes like years and years.
A lot of the crew dies.
A lot of the crew dies along the way.
Yeah.
Future Janeway, who's back to Earth, goes back in time and, you know, has to steal some kind of weapons to do it from the Klingons and get this like illegal drug to protect herself from the radiation. She goes back in time and, pleads with current Janeway to do a certain thing that's going to shave off a lot of time.
Well, it's going to bring them home instantly.
Yeah, it's going to get them
like
home.
That's the idea, is to bring them home without anybody dying.
But it
Seven
will
of
involve...
Nine dies, Chakotay dies, like in
that future, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's going to involve getting really close to the Borg and a potential confrontation with the Borg.
Right.
And Janeway doesn't want to do it, but her future self is talking to her and saying like, "Oh, you're so stubborn. I knew you were going to say that." And it's I just imagine like, what would it be like if I could talk to my future past self? It's so interesting just thinking about that.
It's a two-edged sword though, because there's parts of younger Janeway that future Janeway is like, yeah, I miss being this.
Yeah, exactly.
And
they
so
both teach each other something.
Yeah. You bring that up. I think there's an interesting message in that as well. A little more cut and dry, but yeah.
It made me wonder, like, if there was something that I wanted to convince my past self to do differently, would I be able to? Like, if I wanted to go back and if I was able to go back in time and convince my 20-year-old self, don't go to medical school. It's not going to be worth it. And like, doctors tried to convince me not to go to medical school.
Yeah.
They said, don't do it. You won't be happy. I'm not happy. And I didn't listen to them. Would I listen to my actual future self? I mean, would I even believe that it was myself? Because, like, you know, the Janeway was very skeptical. Is that really her? Or is this somebody playing a trick on me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wonder if I would be able to convince. And what strategies would I use if I were trying to convince my past self of something, to do something?
These are the questions that keep Dr. Stephanie Murphy up at night.
Well, these are the questions that Star Trek raises, and I think they're great questions.
Yes, they
and that's
are.
why it makes it such an amazing show.
Yeah, Star Trek, I've said this so many times. Calling Star Trek a TV show is like calling, a supernova just some light show. Like, no. Star Trek is genuinely, as much as it's an exploration of space and all that, of course, at the end of the day, and, I'm far from the first person to say this, it is an exploration of the human condition in a way that only that kind of setting allows for.
Exploring the internal universe.
Yeah, it's very much about that. It really is, and more. So, anyway, I think we'll wrap this one up. I can't wait for Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Very excited for that.
I'm super excited too. That'll be something to look forward to this winter.
Yeah, next month's for November, again, we'll have another short trek that will get reviewed. There'll probably be some comic reviews somewhere, or maybe there won't be a comic book review in there. But the Blu-ray for Season 1 will be released. I already have that pre-ordered. And so maybe I'll get a little review of that as far as the special features go. And so we'll see what happens for November. And then December, well, that'll be a whole other can of worms. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the Star Trek Update. I always love having you on with this because there's nothing better than talking Star Trek with, the most amazing woman on the planet.
Thank you, Captain. It's been so much fun serving under you.
Ooh, all right. Well, hotel room. I will see all of you on the other side.